The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is Dan Cook with Nadex. We're going to get started here in just a second. Real quick, just want to take a quick video audio check. Make sure everybody's hearing me all right and can see the screen. You should see a slide that says Nadex Town Hall 27 September 2018. If you could, in the question box, just let me know. Perfect, perfect. Great. Thank you all for joining us today. I think I said good afternoon already, but I should say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Not good night yet. That's usually when you're going to bed. But we've got people from all over the world joining us. Got a lot of people on. I'm very excited to see that. It's really great, and I love doing these things. I know we've got a lot of new attendees here. And this is just fantastic. I think it's very important as Nadex is the exchange. We want to be able to communicate with you. And I love doing these. So we're not going to take up too much time with me going through a lot. Got a quick agenda for you. I gave a bit of an update on the last one about the Nadex Beta Mobile. We've got some great news on that regarding your feedback and improvements we've made. As you know, if you've joined us before, I like to take an element of trading. My background is about 20 years, a little more actually, in the markets, as a trader, as a trading coach. And one of the things that was requested early on in these is to give like a little bit of insight into just different elements of trading. So I'm going to share something I think is extremely important, which is tracking your trades and an easy way to do that. The meat of this, though, is actually dedicated to you for your questions and answers. You'll see an email address up there, townhall@nadex.com. We typically have hundreds and hundreds of people on this from all over the world, so there's no possible way in the time that we have to get to all the questions. So what I do is I like people to submit questions beforehand. I'll take questions on the fly as well. I'm going to just tell you right now, there's no way I'll be able to get to all of them today, at least obviously if history is any guide. But that's what we're here for. So if we don't address them today, you can always give us a call, shoot an email to customer service. I'll show you in a little bit where our contact information is. We're here to help you out. We want you to have the best experience possible. So with that, before we begin, quick risk disclosure. Hopefully you know that trading on Nadex or any other trading venue involves financial risk. Whenever you're trading, you need to use risk capital, not grocery money. You want to lose all your money? Use grocery money. There's too much attachment, and we're going to talk a little bit about in tracking our trades and some of the psychology of trading. It should always be risk capital. You've got to take accountability for those trades, but if you put money up for a trade, there's a possibility that you can lose all of the money that you put up. I'm going to be showing some screenshots today. Everything I say is just for example and educational purposes only. Please don't take anything I say. I'm going to show you a chart in a little bit. That is not an indication to buy or sell. So just want to make that very clear before we begin. So with that, let's get right into the Nadex Beta. So a bit of recap on what we talked about previously for those that may not have joined or actually new to Nadex. The Nadex Beta is built on progressive web app technology. And what that means is kind of a fancy way of saying it's really the future of how all apps are going to be built. It's fantastic technology, and what it does, you're probably used to applications on your phone, whether it be iPhone or Android, that you had to download from either the App Store or Google Play, and that's not necessary with this progressive web app technology, sometimes shortened to PWA, which is what Nadex Beta is built on. This offers several benefits. It's faster and more responsive when you're actually using the app, which I would think everybody wants in a trading app, right? You want fast, you want responsive. You don't want to hit the button and sit there and wait for a couple minutes for your order to go through. And this technology allows it to be faster and more responsive. Additionally, you don't have to worry about updates. Every time you log on, you have the latest version. So if you're used to going to the App Store or going to Google Play and you see, oh, hey, all these apps need, have these enhancements, but I didn't even know that they were there because I didn't update them, no worries. And that's what's fantastic about this technology as well. You have the latest version. So any enhancements that come out, and I'm going to be talking about some recent feature additions that were made available, and one I'm very excited about, and I'll explain why in just a few minutes. It also allows a lot faster development to implement feature enhancements. So when we receive your feedback, which is how this entire app was designed. I want to say thanks right now to all the people that have given us feedback, have helped us test this. I might have what I think is a great idea for a feature, and I could be entirely wrong. What we want to hear from are the people that are using our apps that have suggestions. You're using it every day, and everybody uses it a little bit different. There's stuff that I would never think of that maybe 15 or 20 people out there do on a daily basis, whether that be at Nadex or other apps. Give us your feedback. That's how this is designed. Everything from, color palettes to how do I click through to the place where I actually get to an order ticket where I can place my trade. It's all designed from your feedback, and I'm very proud about that. We've got an excellent group of developers and designers, but we couldn't do it without all of you. So keep that feedback coming. That's also, by the way, how we prioritize the recent feature additions, which I'm going to cover the most recent right now. The funding and withdrawing capability. So right from the phone, are you able to fund? Are you able to withdraw? That's now available. That was added earlier this month. That was one of the, I'll say that was actually the second most requested item that we had. It did get released first to the most prioritized item, but that takes a little bit longer, which is charts. And you will see that in all caps with exclamation points. Just as an example, I would let you know if there were 10 pieces of feedback that we received, 9 of them said, when are you going to have charts? Obviously very important. My background is technical analysis and trading. I need to see price action and charts. And those are now available as of Wednesday. They are live. And again, if it's been a little while since you logged in, maybe you logged in last week, they weren't there, you don't have to update anything. They're right there as soon as you log in. That's what's great about progressive web app technology. So your next question might be, well, that's great. How do I get it? How do I take a look? And I encourage everybody, take a look at this. Log in, whether you're in demo or live. Take a tool around. Look at the different features. Think about what you'd like to see, and that'll help us with our future enhancements. So a couple of different ways to get it. And by the way, this is being recorded. So I'll be distributing this out. It takes a little while to render, but within the next day here, I'll get this out to everybody, and we'll be making that public. But if on your mobile device, whether that be an iPhone or an Android, doesn't matter, go to nadex.com. If you have an account, you can just hit login, and you'll be directed whether that be live or mobile, so you can hit login. If you don't have a demo or a live account, you can create one right from that screen. So if you want a live account, click the button that says open up your account. If you want a demo account, try to test it out a little bit, go ahead and create a demo account. You know what? If you have a live account and you've been using that on the web platform or some of the old apps, get a demo account, and then you can try the PWA, the Progressive Web App, Nadex Beta for yourself in the demo environment first. One other way, and like I said, this is being recorded, so I'm going to show you a code in a minute. I'm just going to leave it on the screen. You don't have to do this now. You'll get it in a minute. Really, the easiest way is probably go to nadex.com, but you're going to see this quite a bit, and you're going to see it on our website here in a little bit. It's a QR code. So basically, you scan that, use the camera on your phone, scan it. With the Android, you may have to have a QR barcode scanner. I believe iPhone, you can just use your camera. You don't have to take a picture, just hold it over. It recognizes and it says, hey, do you want to open this window? To which you say yes. So a couple of easy ways to access the Nadex Beta app. Again, encourage you to try it out. All right, so let's get into the charts. I mentioned that enhancement. So not going to spend a lot of time because, again, what I want you to do is not follow my flow. What I want you to do is do it for yourself. As my dad always used to tell me, you can't learn anything until you actually do it. You can get all the instruction in the world, and it's very similar with trading, right? But until you do it, you just don't have the experience. So there's a couple of different ways here to access the charts. And apologies if it sounds like I'm rushing through this. I already see a queue of questions lining up, so I want to make sure I have plenty of times for those, but I also want to stress the emphasis of tracking trades. So I'm going to show you a couple quick ways to access that and make sure we have plenty of time for your question and answers. So once you're into the market, in this case I've got Euro USD as an example, you'll see the accordion there of all the basically the binary option in this case, time frames. You'll see a little icon in the upper right. It looks like 3 candlesticks. Click on that, and what will open up is this expiration. So you can select your expiration. That'll list the strike price for the strike prices for that periodicity. They also center on the strike prices, which was another feedback enhancement that we were able to put in. One other way, if you're already in your market and you've selected your strike and you're looking at it and you say, hey, I want to access the chart right now, I want to take a look at where the price action is. Simply, again, click on that icon. It'll be consistent throughout the app. That'll open up the chart that you see on the right, or whatever chart you've selected. And these were just launched this week. I'm sure there are a lot of improvements that can still be made. And I bet you know what I'm going to say right now. We can only do that with your feedback. So right on the app, if you go to the My Account tab, you'll see that on the bottom right, kind of grayed out a little bit there from the screenshot. If you click on Account, there's a tab right there for feedback. Definitely encourage you to send it in. All right, so that's the update on what's going on with the beta. I want to just spend a few minutes here talking about something that I think is one of the most overlooked yet most important aspects of trading, and that's tracking your trades. And I want to specify, before you hop off the webinar, before you get bored or you say, oh, I didn't get into trading to be an admin and sit there in Excel. I'm not talking about writing down all of your trades. I think for the most part that's useless. Some people really like it. I'm not talking about going into an Excel or other workbook like that and typing in all this minutia of what every trade did. For me anyway, I could never learn that way. But I will say, this is one of the most critical and essential elements in developing as a trader. Now, once you have 15, 20 years experience, you will probably not be doing this. But even if you do and you've never done it, do it anyway. It is a great exercise, and I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to do this so that there's no excuses not to do it. You know what? And here's why. The most important patterns you need to learn are not in the market. Most people, when they start trading, they say, I want to learn a strategy. Just tell me what the pros are doing. Tell me their indicators and time frames, and I can do what they're doing. And that is absolute baloney. It never happens. The most important patterns you need to learn aren't in the market. They're in yourself. And we're going to talk a bit more about that. We all have tendencies. We all have patterns. On future town halls here, I'll discuss a few of those in more depth. But you need to learn yourself and how you trade. Right? So what's in this for you? What does it do when you track your trades? And again, I'm going to show you what I mean by tracking in just a minute. But it helps you identify those patterns in yourself. Are you doing what I'm calling trading stupid? And by the way, all these mistakes I've made, I think, oh, this whole setup is just perfect. So instead of trading the 5 lots I'm used to trading, I'm going to quadruple up. I'm going to put on 20. To heck with my risk management, right? I had that pattern for a bit. You need to be able to identify those patterns in yourself. They're going to help you, whatever strategy you're using or strategies. Many people have multiple strategies, either per market or per market conditions. Maybe one is based on fundamental announcement. Maybe one is all technical. It's going to help you hone your entries and exits. Again, this is all about learning in yourself. It's going to help you keep on track during rough stretches, right? And what I mean by this is we all have rough stretches. Right? Nobody's perfect 100% of the time. And oftentimes it seems like, the old saying, when it rains, it pours. When you're taking losses, they seem to come in clumps, right? This trade lost, this trade lost, this trade lost, this trade lost. And you're sitting there frustrating. You know what? Step away from the computer. And if you've been tracking your trades, you'll be able to go back and you'll be able to see a series of, say, 7, 8, 9, maybe more losses in a row. Then what you might find before you get all discouraged and give up or try to double up and chase the market, you'll probably find that, hey, this happened before. You can go back to that and you go, okay, wow, look at that. The next 15 trades I made were profitable, or maybe 14 out of 15, whatever. It'll help you keep centered and understand those. I'm going to say one other thing, what's in it for you. Now, a lot of Nadex members aren't full-time traders. A lot of us are professionals that have other jobs. We're busy during the day or at night, maybe kids, family. But a lot of us have that aspiration to, be that full-time trader. And I think that's a great aspiration. Unless you're tracking your trades, by the way, I think it's very slim chances that anybody gets to that level, right? Because you need to be learning. And oftentimes when people hear me say, you always need to be learning about the markets, they think they need to be studying market action. And I don't mean that at all. Like, you need to understand your markets and you need to understand your strategy and analysis, keep honing that, but you need to understand yourself first. So, real quick, I ran into a guy. I'd met him a year and a half ago. I'm not going to give you his real name. I'm just going to say Bob Smith. Ran into him a few months ago, and I hadn't talked to him in quite a while. And he let me know. Here's the story of Bob. 2 years ago, he worked for a freight delivery company. I believe it was freight. Got injured on the job. Was laid up. Was on disability, and as most know, disability doesn't pay 100%. So what Bob did, he had always wanted to trade in the markets. He'd always been interested in the markets, fascinated by them, so he opened up a futures account. His wife actually took $10,000 out of her 401k. Right? He was bored during the day. This was the perfect time for him to get to really study the markets. Did well for a few months. And as often happens, 4 or 5 months, you start to think you really know this stuff, and all of a sudden the market will turn against you. And it did. And he started getting really frustrated, right? He had made some money over the first 4, 5, 6 months. All of a sudden he's losing, and he's well below where he, put in his initial deposit. What Bob did, because the one brilliant thing he was doing was that he was tracking his trades. He was taking screenshots of every trade, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. What he was able to do was lay them out on a table and just go through all of them. I actually had the same exercise that I did in it was 2004, end of 2004, early 2005. And you see things that you wouldn't otherwise. And basically a year and maybe 3 or 4 months later, Bob, he had been back to work now for at that point 8 months. He was doing well enough trading that he gave his boss his resignation, and now he's just trading full time. But he says, and this is his words, well, it's a paraphrase, would have never happened if he hadn't been tracking his trades all along. So let's talk just a little bit more about how you do that, and then we're going to get into the question and answer because they're already stacking up. So what do you need to do to track your trades the way I would suggest you do? The first thing you need to do before you place another trade, sit through the end of this webinar. We've got some great questions coming up, but sit through the end of this webinar. But really, before you place another trade, go to the store. And here's what I want you to get. If you don't have a printer, you can get a printer pretty cheap, right? That you can hook into your computer, get a printer and some paper. If you already have that, great, you're ahead of the game. You can go to, you can go to probably an office supply store or even a grocery store and get most of this stuff. Go get a 3-hole punch and a 3-ring binder. That's what you need to do. It's $10 or less. Trust me, so worth it. When you're trading, and this is the thing, I don't believe in getting away from your screen when you're trading to go fill in a bunch of numbers in Excel in order to track your trades. Take a screenshot at the start and after your trade and possibly during, depending on the duration of your trade. You might take 6 screenshots for a trade, right? Whether there be profitable or loss, print it out. That's in bold. You have to print it out and put it in your binder. Now, you can file these however you want. A lot of people will put them in by organizing them by strategies that they're doing or by market and then strategy. But that printed out is in bold. And if you think about it like this, it's like a puzzle. I've had people that do this, and then they're like, Dan, I didn't get anything out of it. And I ask what happened. And they're like, well, I have all my screenshots in a Word document. You need to have these printed out where you can spread them out. Picture it like a jigsaw puzzle, right? If you had all of the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle in a Word document that you had to flip through page after page after page, do you think you'd ever be able to put the pieces together? Absolutely not. That's why it's important that they be printed out. That's why when you get a puzzle, you flip them all over so you can see the color combinations and the patterns that develop, and then you can put them together. Same thing with tracking your trades. Take a screenshot. How do you take a screenshot? Literally takes less than 2 seconds. If you're on Windows, hold down the Alt key and press the PRT SCN print screen button. Just hold down Alt, hit print screen. On a Mac, you just hold down the Command and Shift at the same time and press the number 3. And that should take a screenshot. By the way, if that doesn't work for you, you may need to go to a search engine. I'm not sure of all models or operating systems out there, but these are the 2 main ones that are active now for recent software. So what will that look like? So this is just an example that I took. And they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I think when you're taking screenshots, this could be worth $1,000 or more over the history of trading, right? Because you can learn and see patterns. When you have that picture in front of you, it's very visual. You can see your entry. You can annotate the charts. You can see where the indicators, if you're using indicators, if you're looking at patterns, you can see all of those very clearly. And it just gives you such a better chance of success when you can lay those out, particularly if you take a look at your losses. By the way, you've already paid for your losses. They're just waste if you don't learn from them. And I don't know of really any other way to learn from them other than to actually go back and analyze them, and not analyze them one at a time. You won't get a full picture that way. But take all your losses. If you're using one particular strategy, take those losses, put them out on a table, take a look at your charts, and see what was happening at that time. You may not right away see a pattern, you may not see a commonality at all, but over time something will appear, and it's very powerful, and that's why they have to be printed out. All right, hopefully that makes sense on tracking your trades. Again, I think that is absolutely one of the most important aspects for the way people develop as traders. So let's see. Oh, Richard, yep, I definitely appreciate as far as downloading into Excel with details and why you're successful or not. I'm just saying most people will never do that. I'm saying this is probably the easiest way. And as far as when you take a screenshot. So yeah, some people, if you're doing it in Excel and that works for you, definitely don't. What I do know is that, and I've spent the last, since 2004 working with individual traders, I will say easily that 99% of the people that had already been trading for 6 months or a year were not tracking their trades at all. And so that's what I mean by that, Richard. If Excel works for you, fantastic. And yeah, within the P&L report, he's also asking a question about history area, and that's something that we're mocking up. It is in the pipeline. I don't have a set time frame, but something that's very very important. I agree. So that's something we're working on, Richard. And as we get more, and that's why I do these every couple of weeks. By the way, there's going to be a special town hall next week because I have a fairly decent size announcement, which is very exciting. So we've kind of already gotten to the questions. I'll say fire away. I've also got some questions that were sent in previously. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to give you this email address real quick. So I'm not ending the webinar, even though it says thank you there. townhall@nadex.com. Just write it down, put a note in your phone. Townhall@nadex.com. So if you have, use feedback, by the way, if you want to send feedback for the app, use the actual feedback application. That goes to the right location, and we'll get filtered through all of us that are taking a look at this every day. But if you have questions you want addressed, questions about the platform, questions about Nadex, questions about trading, send them to townhall@nadex.com. And we'll do our best to address all of those in a little bit. And the reason I skipped there, so let's see here. I'm going to see if we've got some live questions first, then I'll get, let's see, it's kind of a long one. A chart that have numerous strike prices. You have to lengthen the chart to see all of them. Hey, Kevin. Yep, that's a good question. So the question is about charts. And yeah, with depending on particularly the time frame that you're trading, the charts, right, you can manipulate them both on the time axis as well as the upper or lower. But if you're looking at a much longer time frame, you're going to have a much wider range, and it's almost impossible to create a chart with the strike prices where you can see them, because they will tend to disappear. And that's kind of just by nature of you only have so much real estate to work with. And I'm happy to take suggestions on how to change that. I haven't been able to think of a way yet where you can do that. Now, one thing that I know a lot of people will do is they'll basically take a look at, and let me see if I can open up a chart here. Give me 1 second. Oh, let me just see if I can open up a chart here. And I think this is one that I had before, so need to, I'm on a very giant monitor here. So let me just do this, bring it up like this. So I think, and Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking about when you are on the chart, you see how those strike prices there, depending on the time frame you're on, and let me get rid of some of these indicators. That was done, for example, earlier. If you go out to a longer time frame, so right now this is a 5-minute chart, but if I go out to a 1-hour chart, I'm going to lose some of those. And that's by nature of I've got a much bigger move and I have to have a certain amount of real estate. Otherwise, I'd never be able to read these. Now, if I want to, you know, show this, I kind of expand, but then the chart gets kind of hard to read. And what a lot of times I've heard from people what they'll actually do, Kevin, because really physically keeping the real estate, there's not a great way to get around that and still illustrate the strike prices. But what they'll do is they'll kind of ignore the strike prices and do the analysis. So won't even pay attention over here, don't care, but the analysis is done, right? Because when you're doing the analysis, then you're picking out your key time frames. But what you can do then, once you have your lines drawn and the analysis and you've done it on maybe a longer time frame, you can go into the shorter and you have your key levels where you can zoom in. That was a suggestion that was given to me a long time ago, actually by one of our members, and they're like, well, you know, it is. The one, you know, it's kind of that double-edged sword. People love the strike prices on the side, but then if you do have a big move, right, you're not going to be able to keep all of the strike prices and that move in a ratio that's acceptable. I hope that makes sense. And what some people will do also is pick out their key ratios. They won't use the actual binary option chart with the strike prices. They'll do their analysis on another chart, possibly even an underlying market chart, and then they'll look for the key levels, and or they'll do their annotation right on the binary chart. All right, hopefully that answered it, Kevin. Yeah, and again, any suggestions, particularly if anybody's a chart developer, there's just a limited amount of space. Got a couple other questions here coming in. What would you? What would I? Oh, this is a great question, Nelson. Wow. What would you tell yourself if you had the ability to go back to your first week of trading? I think I would tell myself, don't be the idiot that I was. Real quick, I started. I always say I placed my first trade in 1997 on equities during the climb of the tech bubble, and I was buying tech stocks like crazy. And I thought this is easy. Why doesn't everybody do this? And then I realized in 2000 when that bubble burst and I lost pretty much everything that I wasn't trading. So I'd probably tell myself to take time. I tell myself a couple things actually. I'd tell that Dan. I'd probably have to spend a whole week with that Dan just to even say half of what I'd want to. But I'd tell that Dan to understand a plan, to put together a plan before you get into the market and the trades, to really understand those markets. But more importantly, take time to understand yourself. And it's very easy to trade. I mean, it's very easy to click a button and execute a trade. It's very difficult to trade consistently. I'd also tell that, Dan, that cash is a position. You don't have to be in the market 100% of the time, right? I thought when I first got in, I'm a trader, I have to trade. And so I wouldn't be patient and wait for opportunities. That's definitely another thing I'd highlight. I'd tell him at that point to be tracking everything he did on those screenshots. It's even easier now though with the technology enhancements. I'd also tell him not to get overly confident in a strategy, because I've never seen a profitable trader whose strategy really was worth a spit. I don't mean that it wasn't worth anything. I mean that if they don't have the self-discipline and risk management behind any strategy, it's going to fail. And it will. And that's one thing that was difficult. I mentioned earlier, I thought when I got into this, if I just knew what time frames and indicators the pros were using, I could make money. And that is so not true. And I hear it all the time. And I know firsthand the first thing people want when they get in to trading, particularly when they're new, is tell me a strategy. I want a strategy. Don't even look at a strategy. Go read a book on risk management. Mark Douglas has a great book called Trading in the Zone, which is about the psychology of trading. I highly recommend that for everybody. I don't make many recommendations, but that's one. Know yourself and know yours. And the most, I think probably another thing I'd tell that Dan, and sorry, rambling on, I have a lot of thoughts on, geez, that was a flashback. But Um, I don't, not to overcomplicate it, that trading in its core, um, and then the most successful traders I've ever seen, I don't know how many like options traders, like equity options traders are on this. I know when I got into it, it was kind of intimidating. You know, you start to learn, I know, a call and a put, but then you start learning the Greeks, the theta, alpha, gamma, delta, and all of a sudden it starts getting more relevant. And then everybody's like, "Oh, here's this 27 leg option strategy, the iron condor polar bear strategy." Um, the best options traders I know have a couple of strategies that they can execute over and over consistently. So I think that's a great question, Nelson. I probably went on a little bit long on that. And by the way, we've got a few more questions here. I know the half an hour is up, but I took a little bit of time on that tracking the trade, so I'm gonna get through a few more here. Um, Ray is asking about as far as logging into the beta. Um, it shouldn't be too different from the old apps. Now, one thing, Ray, that might help, and I recommend for everybody, once you get into the beta, and it's dependent on whether you have an Android or an iPhone, exactly the process. But I would save that to your basically to your home screen. So it'll look like an app on your home screen. It'll say Nadex beta, it's an N with a thing on it that says it's an N, Nadex N with beta underneath of it. Save that to your home screen, and then it looks like any other app. So you don't have to go back to a browser, because I think that's where it may be a pain for you. Because if you just click the app, it takes you right to the login screen for either live or demo, and I think that'll help, which will be more like the experience of if you're using the legacy apps that were in either Android or iPhone. Let's see. Are there any plans to include Bitcoin or other cryptos as binaries? Um, Richard, at this point, there aren't. One of the things we actually we had listed previously binary options on Bitcoin. At one point, as this market matures, and that's more of it, is how the market matures. If we were looking at last, say, geez, even doing spreads on it, when we were looking at the specs on that last October, November, you'd write up specs and the market was changing so fast you'd have to, and that was a spread. So when you're trying to assign strike prices and also the severity of market moves, it becomes very difficult on a binary option. We also have to ensure, that they can't be manipulated, things like that. We have to protect the integrity of our markets. So at this point, there's not. Now, as this market matures, one of the big things that happened for Bitcoin, right? If you remember the volatility of last year, say November, December, January, futures contracts were launched on Bitcoin, right? And so we could really see a lot of the volatility die down. Now, it's still not a mature market, so at some point, I could absolutely see that being a possibility. At this point, though, I don't have a time frame, but great questions. Chris Bennett, will there be more webinars? We have a lot of webinars. This actually goes along with the one of the emails I received to the town hall. I'm going to hop in here real quick because they're kind of related. So we have webinars. There's usually at least two to four a week. We actually have a series coming up with one of our education partners in October where we're going to have a whole series dedicated to candlesticks. And that's going to be very exciting. So keep an eye out for that. If you go to, you can go to the webinars page or underneath the education courses. If you go to webinars, we have live as well as on-demand webinars. So let's say you wanted to join live. We see my friend John Skelton's picture up there from Apex. Happy birthday yesterday, John. I think he's on today. And you can choose on-demand or upcoming. So upcoming would be anything, obviously, that hasn't happened yet. On-demand, if you click those, this will take you to all of the webinars that are actually right there. So, I mean, there are pages and pages and pages, advanced topics, strategies. And so I think when you say webinars, though, if you would, because, Chris, we want to know what you want in webinars. I encourage this of everybody. This is something you send to townhall@nadex.com because it's myself and a couple people on my team that work to get get the topics in that you guys want to see. So let us know what topics you want. So as far as a number, being more webinars, I don't see where we're going to fit any more in than about one a day just due to resource. But we can certainly do them on different topics. So let us know what those are. townhall@nadex.com. David has a great question here. As far as settlement, so when you see that settlement amount on the email, right? It shows the payout amount. So let's say I traded 10 binary contracts that all settle at 100, and I would see on my settlement email $1,000. Now that doesn't mean I made $1,000, right? Because I had to put up money to secure those. So let's say I bought all of those at $50, right? They were right in the middle, $50. So I put up $500 to secure that trade. My settlement email comes and it says I got paid $1,000. I did. I got the $500 that I put in back plus the $500 in profit. If I'd have bought all of those at $70, right? I put up $700 to secure that trade. Get the 1,000 back. That's $300 net profit. So yeah, that's correct. What goes into your trading account as profit is basically the profit on the trade minus what was your maximum risk getting into the trade. Hey Chris, yeah. So yeah, right on the Nadex website, underneath Learning Center, you can click on webinars, choose from spreads, options, forex. You can do it market specific. There's a lot of great content. Again, though, I'd love to hear people's suggestions on this. The other one is I think I got this one before as well. As far as in my opinion, what's the best strategy on Nadex or to use on Nadex? I kind of alluded to this earlier. It doesn't matter what strategy. There are a lot of great strategies. If you don't have risk management principles as part of your trading foundation, it doesn't work. Not every strategy will work for everybody. Everybody trades different. What you need to do is whatever strategy you settle on, you need to be able to do it consistently. You need to be able to track your trades. It has to be within your risk parameters. Real quick, because I know I'm running quite a bit over, and I want to be respectful of everybody's trades. And Zanette, as far as when are the charts coming, the charts are in there now, as of I believe it was yesterday. I'm losing track of days. We've been pretty busy here. Charts are in the beta now as of yesterday. Kind of lost my train of thought there. All these questions are popping up. Oh, real quick, and I think I told this story on a few of them ago, so if you've heard it before, please don't get too bored. There was a study done, I believe it was 2005, 2006 in Currency Trader magazine, where they took 4 traders, 2 veterans and 2 that were newer traders. I'll tell this pretty quick. They teamed them up. So 1 veteran with 1 new trader, 1 veteran with 1 new trader, 2 teams. Both teams are trading the Euro USD for 30 days. Team A could only be long the contract. Team B during that time frame could only be short that currency pair. What they found at the end of the 30 days was that both of the veteran traders had both made money. Both of the newer, less experienced traders had both lost money. And it had nothing to do with strategy. The only thing it had to do with was risk management. So going back to that question, I think I'd have, when I could go back to myself, my first week of trading, one, I'd probably say get Propecia before you lose all your hair. That was one thing I didn't add before. Second one is read this article from 2006, not to find out where the Euro USD would be at the time, but to understand that risk management is king when it comes to trading. And that also goes to the psychology. Risk management and psychology tied, they're hand in hand. John, as far as indicators, I really historically, one time I used quite a few indicators and I really couldn't get anything done. Indicators are what they are. I think price action is actually one of the most important indicators. Just understanding price and watching a market. I've seen people successful with all types of indicators. One thing I'd say is whenever it comes to indicators, spend some time with them, understand what they mean. Understand, are they a momentum indicator? Are they a trend indicator? I've seen a lot of people that'll have 5 different momentum indicators up on their screen that are all based on really the same math. And then they'll say, well, I'm executing trades, but I'm not successful. Well, because your 5 indicators are all saying the same thing because they should, because they're all driven from the same data in the same context. So with regard to indicators, and one of the things that we're going to be doing, I'm looking at some further education, is really taking a deep dive into all the indicators available at Nadex. And the indicators I use, I wouldn't be much help because I look at the RSI indicator, but that was really intended as an overbought, oversold indicator, which I never use it for. I actually use it for a divergence indicator, but that's far beyond the scope of getting into there. Let's see. I think that's a great question. I believe I'm pronouncing it right, Rahul. Does binary option market affect the currency market? It would actually be vice versa, right? So the binary option market, as far as Nadex is concerned, the currency market, by the way, is the largest global market in the world. Think of global commerce, and that's all driven on currencies of different types. So that's huge. Maybe one day Nadex will be bigger than that. We'll see. Actually doubtful, because anything Nadex would do would actually be currency driven also, but long story. So in order to answer your question, no. So the underlying market, and this really goes for all markets, not just currencies, but the underlying market is what's going to drive the value of the is what's going to drive the value of the binary option, either up or down. So it's always the underlying market. And so that's why I always recommend, that's, where what you do your analysis on. The analysis on an actual binary option price movement is almost useless. You need to be looking at the indicative underlying or the underlying market in order to do that, because otherwise it'd be the tail wagging the dog. But no, the dog, being the currency market or other market, is always wagging that tail. What chart would you rather use? Time, ticks, price, or volume? Um, uh, I'm going to answer that a couple ways, Matthew. This is a great question, and I'm going to actually kind of roundabout answer it because it goes hand in hand with another question. I've often asked why we don't have Nadex volume on our charts, and the reason being, it would the volume of Nadex, going back to the previous point, doesn't impact the price, right? If you're looking at like a futures contract, that's where volume analysis comes in. So if you're doing volume analysis, similar to any other analysis, you'd want to do it on the underlying market, because that's going to drive your binary price. As far as your question, I mean, I like time and price charts. I like multiple time frame analysis. By the way, in full disclosure, folks here, I trade. I'm still an active trader, not as active as I was when I was full-time trading. I have some responsibilities here that my boss gets upset if I don't fulfill. Webinars like this being one of them. But while I trade, I'm not allowed to trade Nadex, right? Nadex is an exchange. We're here to match buyers and sellers. We have to remain unbiased, right? It looked pretty bad if me at my position at Nadex and I'm going in taking the other side of somebody else's trade, right? So as full disclosure, I'm not allowed to trade Nadex, although I'm intimately involved. One of the reasons why also we have a lot of great third-party educators that teach a lot of great strategies, that teach a lot of great principles on risk management and building trading plans and just about everything trading related under the sun. But for mine, to answer your question, I've always been a really big believer in multi-time frame analysis. That specific time frame, instrument specific, but I always kind of preferred doing analysis on the daily charts, both price and time, as well as 1 hour, 15 minutes, and sometimes as low as 5, and that just seemed to fit my trading style. But it looks like I've taken up quite a bit of everybody's time. These are awesome questions. I really appreciate everybody joining us. I've got to go ahead and wrap it up. This is being recorded, so once this is processed, I'm going to get it out. Again, your questions are extremely important. Your feedback's very important. For questions, like Chris, what you mentioned earlier as far as the additional webinars, if there's topics you want to see, if there's stuff you want us to cover, send it to townhall@nadex.com. with you know what, and I'm sure I've missed a ton of questions here. I'm going to be going through after the webinar here and see what I can get answered. May have to roll it into the next webinar, but I really appreciate everybody's participation here this afternoon. You guys has been fantastic. I'll take this real quick one. Jason, I'm not going to get too quick, but you'll be happy regarding widths. I'm reassessing all of those, specifically NQ, because that one's the most kind of what I'd say is out of whack. But I want to thank everybody again today. And really, just seriously, questions, reach out to us. Got a great staff here on the phones. They love helping you all out. And really just appreciate our members. And, you know, we want to do these because we want your voices to be heard, and we really do sincerely take your feedback, your questions very seriously, and do the best we can to implement that. With that, I know it's only Thursday, but I'll wish everybody a fantastic weekend. And until next time, look forward to seeing you hopefully all next week for a very special town hall, which is substantially different than a very special Blossom, if you remember that TV show. Have a great weekend and great evening, all. Thank you.